Welcome, everyone, to the Umana Yana podcast. My name is Josh Dripal, and I'm your host. Now, today we're having a conversation that I personally have never engaged in or seen or bared witness to, and I think it's one that's incredibly relevant. Now, before we dive into that and introducing the episode, I want to turn it over to my guest for today, who's going to introduce himself, a little bit about what he's about, and then we're going to jump right on into it. So without further ado, take it away, my friend.
Yes, hello, Joshua. Thank you. Really, I really appreciate having me here in your podcast. My name is Goran Klobučar. I really lead men after divorce or separation to really start rebuild themselves. I'm not just helping them go through the divorce, but what is then the next step after divorce. Because I went through this phase, and I know how much important it is that you first rebuild yourself and build your self relationship. That's why I'm also a self relationship architect for men.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I love that, man. And I've been like the way that I've connected with you is actually through LinkedIn. I think I've seen you on LinkedIn for I want to say 2 or 3 years at this point. And your work has always stood out to me because I've never seen, someone really put their energy into supporting a man at the point of divorce. Right. Usually we kind of just generally personal development, it's generally how we see it.
Yeah.
So I think that this is really special. And I personally, without even having to think too much, I know so many men who I feel would benefit from this type of space to examine their life and their choices and how they want to make different ones moving forward. So I thank you for being present with us today. And I really look forward to everything you're going to share with us today, my friend. So, without further ado, we're going to jump right on in and we're going to go into our first question, right? So, divorce, it's something a little bit more prevalent than, say, might have been experienced by a generation or two ago, right? Now it's almost pretty rare for you to find someone who maybe hasn't experienced it or, witnessed it firsthand for themselves, right? So I want to ask you, when a man goes through divorce, what part of his identity dies? And, as you explore that, what part of his identity was never actually his to begin with?
Yeah. Okay. This is a good question. Well, actually, after divorce, yes, a man loses his identity that was tied to the relationship, to the marriage, and also tied to his roles, like a husband, a provider, a protector. And then there is arises the question, what was actually me? Who was actually me? Or just who? Maybe I was just who I learned to be.
Right.
And that man starts to see that these roles that he was playing, that he became that roles. And after outside of them, he feels empty. He feels undefined. He feels
Mm.
lost. And what really dies is not just a role, but identity built on that roles. And a lot of what really dies was never really fully his to begin with because it was built,
Right.
and but underneath it all there are parts of man that was always there, but they were just pushed aside. They were neglected, like his needs, his voice, his standards, his boundaries,
Mm.
and what I see that what dies is the identity he relied on to really feel like a man, you know. And what was really never truly his was the version of himself built on the expectations and roles and actually the survival.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I guess for me, the immediate question that really comes to the surface for me is,
yeah.
okay, I get it. I've felt that pressure, responsibility to play certain roles at different times in my life, right? But why do you feel like maybe it's such a big moment where we've totally, when say a man experiences divorce, where all those identities and hats that he wore peel off? Why do you feel like there's nothing below it anymore? Like, did he never make the choice to have an identity that was, say, just Josh or just Goran, right? Like, are we skipping that step when it comes to our own growth and the way we choose to live? Like, why do you find that happens?
Well, I believe also I also lived it. It's that we are conditioned. We are conditioned from our childhood. We are raised as a man differently as women. We are raised also from our mothers who also were conditioned. This is like going on,
Right.
and we don't. I believe also from my experience, we never really learned how to really be ourselves without these external things, external, no, not just roles, but our education, our job title, everything, and then we never really sit down and really look at ourselves who we really are without all these things,
Yeah.
because first the society is really cruel about men, and you have to really you have to no, you have to really what is the word, sorry, um, perform. You have to perform, to really become and show up as a man in today's society. And this is really
Yeah.
sad, because men are then, of course, they have feelings. Of course, they feel this, but they feel that something is off within, and they never learned how to sit with it, and then they suffer, and
Mm.
then there are triggers. They also in relationships, because there is a lot of emotions going on there, and then they seem like they don't care, or they are, they are too rough, but it's not true. They are just not being learned how to deal with this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear that. And it's so true, right? Like I've seen that myself too. It just so happens that I think I've really absorbed this because, I was in the presence of a lot of women as I was growing up, right? But that emotional intelligence is not something that just kind of happens, right? Like it's something that
No.
needs to be
No.
intentionally shared and taught, right? And you make a
Yeah.
really great point, and I'm so glad you said it the way you did, right? Like the world can be cruel to men, thinking like,
Yeah.
you're born a man and your life is just easy. And I often come across enter that conversation, and I'll be honest, I'm not too sure how to gracefully navigate and give each side their due, if you know what I mean. But I
Hmm.
had, for example, a gentleman. He's out, I believe, in Trinidad, and he sent me a video, right? And this was a video. I think it was around the time of Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, right? And they were talking about it, and what they were really showing is the fact that you know women do believe often that we have it easier, but it was kind of showing like the dark side, if you will, and all the different things that we don't have
Hmm.
advantage over
Hmm.
by being a man.
Hmm.
And I found it so
Yeah.
interesting that it was produced by a man, sent to me by a man, right? But at the same time, it's really hard to introduce this on a bit more of a global platform, if you will, to talk about it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Great. 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 Well, I think this is a great perspective, because they say, okay, you are a man, as you mentioned, it's easier for you in the business and everything. But what's behind? What's the story behind that?
Right.
Because many, as I said, many men are performing, many.
So true.
So yeah, this is
Yeah.
another story.
Absolutely, no,
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, the performance and
yeah,
embodiment is two different things for sure. So,
yeah.
I want to know from your experience, right? Like, how long have you been specifically positioning yourself to work with men and guide them through this process? How long have you been in this space?
Well, it's not been so long, It was like 2 years now,
Okay.
because first I needed time to build myself.
Yeah.
This is important one, because I didn't just learn this from the books. I lived it. And I needed some time, because my divorce really, it wasn't just the divorce, it was just an event, but for me it represented like the end of my existence, really. It really broke me, and
Right.
I needed time to rebuild myself, and this is where I learned, how important it is to rebuild first or second relationship.
Right.
This is I learned everything through my life experience,
Okay.
and I also took help. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I was really, it was really uncomfortable for me to say yes, I need help, but for me it was the only way, and I took it, and then I saw that, why didn't I take it before, before
Yeah.
even in my marriage, because I now then I saw that I needed it before, but
Mm,
I wasn't aware of this. Yeah.
I hear you. So, now that you've
Yeah.
come out on the other side of it and you're someone who helps to support people through this portion of their
Yeah.
life, right? What do
Yeah.
you find is effective? How do you communicate to other men or help them to feel safe enough to actually say, I need help? Like, how do we create a bit more of a culture around that versus sort of expect it to just sort of appear out of midair, if you will?
Well, this is interesting, because back then when I wasn't like I'm now, I was also performing. And also when I was talking to men, I was just playing my role,
Yeah.
exactly my role, how to be a man, how to, be this successful man, But now this veil is off, it's opened. And now I am really Goran,
Yeah.
not the husband, not the, the coach, not the father, but I am Goran here, opened, vulnerable. This is also
Yeah.
important. I can sit now with others' emotions. I don't run away like I used to.
Right.
And what is important here when I speak to men, when I open myself and they see that, wow, he talked so freely about his emotions and everything, so openly, without pretending and without a mask, and then they also open up more easily.
Yeah.
So I think the most important thing here is to lead by example. This is in my way, as a coach for men, it's
Yeah.
important to lead by example. That men really see that I'm not somebody who just read a few books, has a few seminars or certificate, and then now he's helping men. No, I'm the one who leads it, and I so feel them. I know how they feel and how they see themselves, and this is then the connection is more stronger.
I hear
Yeah,
that. And that sounds like
yeah,
a very powerful thing, right? Like you lived it and you had
yeah,
to actually understand how to pull yourself out of that mud before you can go and set
exactly.
your sights on helping other people, right? And I think that's another line where you and I both really resonate, right? We really,
Yeah,
we really see the starting point for anything as ourselves, right? And it kind
yeah,
of ties
yeah,
to me
yeah,
into self-mastery, right? It's like I'm
yeah,
not just going to be this man for me to be a great husband to you. It's like I'm going to be a great man for me, and then
yeah,
everything else is secondary. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I think it's really
yeah.
helpful for them to have a space where they can explore this and really, have someone share that they matter too,
Mm,
because we do. We,
yes.
we certainly do. And I think we show up better in all the different roles that we also play and embody when we have that sense of identity, a strong sense of self that's not necessarily tied to those things, right?
Mm,
Um, I kind of liken it to like, when we're dating, right? And, we know our partner really likes this about us, this and that. So we're going to keep doing it, keep doing it, right? And it's like, you get that positive feedback, right? But then what happens later on? It's like, oh, it just kind of falls off, right? So I think we have to continue to make this commitment and really see what the feedback is showing us about how we can shift and what we can do, right? Um,
yeah,
so,
true.
I want to know from you, and as you've worked with people from all over the world, right? What have you noticed as the difference between a man who, chooses to use the divorce as an opportunity to transform versus the man who makes that choice to kind of just stay bitter about it, right? Like, what do you see as that fork in the road and the things that he weighs when he's deciding which direction he wants to go in?
Yeah, okay. So a divorce, I can say the divorce can really break a man. I know how it is, but it can also wake him up. And I have to say that here is a dangerous path that many men take, that they want to rebuild quickly their life, but
Right.
their life, not themselves. They should first rebuild themselves, but they want to rebuild what broke externally. you know and such a man, they stay just busy, and he doesn't really want to sit with what happened with him, with his
Yeah.
emotions. So he starts also to blame his ex. He's blaming the life for the circumstances that he's found himself in. Then but when he does that, nothing really changes. It just feels worse.
Right.
And then he carries these patterns into the next relationship. And there is the same avoidance, same shutdown. It feels like a different life on the outside, but underneath there is the same man. you know
Yeah.
and then also, of course, the bitterness grows here, because he sees that he's stuck. But the other man who uses the divorce as not as a failure, but as a really opportunity for transformation, they start to ask themselves, and they start to be more self-aware. They start to ask themselves, what did I abandon? Where did I abandon myself? Where did I stay silent? They want to see what they really lost in the
Right.
divorce, in the divorce. And they really start to discover themselves, and they want to rebuild, their self-talk, how they talk to themselves, how they really, what they tolerate. They also set boundaries, and how they really show up when there is a pressure, and I can say that divorce, it also really can be really a turning point,
Yeah.
in a man's life. And I, I can say this like, the real identity shift. It's not from married to single, but from unconscious living to conscious living. And this divorce can also help you, to get there, but you
Interesting.
have to use it. Yeah,
Oh,
because
that's a ver-
this is all from my experience. I was there. I was really on autopilot, unconsciously living on autopilot.
right.
And when the divorce hit, of course, it woke me up totally.
I hear
Yeah,
you. So, Gordon, I mean, like, there's so many things that you said there that I want to touch on, right? But like, what do you
yeah.
find is or maybe a few of the things that often keep us or put us or make us feel pressure to get into that autopilot state to the point that we do then get disconnected from our life, and then now, you know what I mean? Now then life requires a stimulus for us to go from that unconscious living to that conscious living, right? Like, what are you seeing as the pitfalls for men that get us there?
Well, I can see that the main trigger is a pain, or really the situation where the man is now, and this is more painful than to make a change. Then there
Yeah.
is they have to make a change, because they can't really live where are they now.
Yeah.
This is, I believe that this is the main trigger. And then they also start to, to see, to be more self-aware, to start to really discovering themselves, because there is no other way, because if they will live the way they are now,
Yeah.
I know that there is a lot of men who don't really see this. They see, they just say, and they say, okay, this is just the way life is, this is just the way I am.
Yeah.
But this is very dangerous thought, because they just keep them there, stuck, miserable, and again in the autopilot, but
Yeah.
they have to break from the autopilot. Yeah,
True. Yeah, I mean, like we give our
yeah,
power away when we make statements like that, right? Like that's
yeah,
just the way it
yeah,
is and things like that, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I think that's incredibly important. And you know, one thing that I want to ask you is, have you noticed with the clients that you have worked with from all over the world, have you noticed that maybe certain areas of the world, they maybe, are less prone to having some of these challenges? Like, do you notice there's an influx, say, of, people in certain areas where they're really going through a lot of divorce versus not so much in other areas of the world? And, how do you feel like the culture of those spaces maybe impacts all of that?
Well, I worked with a lot of men from US, so I have the experience from them that they are much more open, to share about what there's going on. And there is a lot, of course, divorces in US. And I really can't say that I noticed that there in other places are less divorces, because, of course, I talked mostly with the men who are already divorced.
Yeah.
So, but maybe just this distinction, um, in the US, when men from the US, they first, they are more, they speak about their pain much more quicker. They don't hesitate. They are not ashamed to share. This is maybe also a cultural thing, because I visited US years ago, but I can see from where I am now in Slovenia, Europe, we are more closed people. We don't share a lot of things. We are not so open and talk to the strangers. But then in US, I think this is a common sense,
Mm,
a common thing.
got
And
it.
I also, everything is connected. They also therapy is their common sense. Here there is still stigma to visit, to have a therapist.
Got
So
it.
this is all connected, I see. So of course, divorce also hurts everybody, but they are more open. They talked about more open, and this is also good for men, because they talk about it more, more with others, and
Yeah.
this is good because they don't keep it to themselves. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. No, I appreciate that insight. Yeah, I was just
yeah,
curious, and so that's really great to know that in one of the more heavily populated places in the world, that you're finding that openness and willingness to be vulnerable and share about what the experience actually was for them, right? Versus continue to perform per se, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
you know, I think that we both are very much about like making sure we're not giving our power away and encouraging others to not do the same, right? So I think a lot of this really comes from us being confident enough to use our voice, whether that's in a podcast or when communicating with someone in a real life scenario, whatever it happens to be, right? Just that confidence to actually use that voice, right? So what have you noticed that men are not saying out loud as they go through the process of divorce, be that at the beginning, middle, or following, right? That's actually shaping what becomes possible in their future, self and life and relationships and their overall sense of self-worth as they move ahead.
Yeah, there is a lot of unspoken words, I can say. And I also know that men in this period of divorce, they are too cruel to themselves. They have this harsh self-talk. They see divorce as a personal failure, and they put the weight on themselves, and they don't speak about it. A lot of this, they silently battle within. And I remember how small I felt, after my divorce. It was really hard for me to look to the humans, to the people in the eyes, because I felt that they saw my shame, my failure, and my broken life. It was really hard, and many men, they don't say out loud, like, I feel alone, but I don't know how to sit with it.
Mm,
This is, and then of course this is avoid. Then men they compensate with with more work. They go to gym more excessively. They distract themselves also maybe by drinking or other substances, because it's hard to live with these emotions kept inside, but they are ashamed and afraid to share them. And other thing I also heard was, and this was also me, I don't feel like I'm enough.
mm,
And this then shows up quietly in tolerating things that you shouldn't, then avoiding real deep conversations, and also needing validations, but pretending that he doesn't because he's not done the work. And as I mentioned before, men feel this. They are emotional beings, of course, but they were
mm.
never taught how to handle this.
Yeah.
And also, as I mentioned, society is really rough on them, and we really must, provide them more these safe spaces to men that to open up,
Mhm.
and talk louder about this, and share. Also, others men who are divorced and can openly share this to really to really make this space more non-judgmental, and more safe for men to also share their pain, because when you share pain, it's really easier. I also say the emotions are here to express them, not suppress them.
Yes,
you
love
know
that.
and I also read one book, a really good book about trapped emotions, because they cause severe illness. That's why you need to express them, you need to share them, you need to to just put them out of your body. And
Yeah.
many men are still, as I said, silently suffering, and this is not just mentally, their whole body is in danger. And it's crucial. It's brutal, sorry.
Yeah.
And that's why there is, of course, another big advantage for a man to start working on himself, not just because of the thing that happened to him, and the mental thing, about the divorce and everything, but also about his health,
100%.
overall health, overall
Yeah,
health. Yeah,
that's true.
yeah,
And I find that something in my work that I've seen. Let me know if you've seen it in yours
yeah,
too. Is just generally lack of vocabulary to express what it is we're feeling. Right. Like I found that as men, oftentimes we know kind of the words for like I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm mad, which are
yeah.
versions of each other, kind of. But beyond that, we don't necessarily. And so I want to share with our audience today. I want to share an exercise that helped me. And Goran, let me know if you've tried this out or, how you feel about it. But, I found that there was a lot going on within me and I just had no words for it. Right. And this is a very recent version of myself, like within the last 5 years or so. So, men, we think about when men usually identify with an animal, for example, it's usually a lion, right? This loud roar, this and that, right? Now,
Yeah.
I was invited into our yurt, right? And I was invited to just roar my loudest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd never done that before. I actually kind of felt silly, to be very honest with you. I'm like, what do you mean? You want me to like roar like a lion? Like, what are we doing here? But I tried.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, like the smallest squeak came out of me and I burst into uncontrollable tears.
Really.
And I sat there, I'm like, what is happening to me? And like I like you're saying, you encourage presence, right?
Yeah.
So I sat with myself, like,
Yeah.
what is happening in my body? And it was like there was all of this within me. It's an audible sound. It doesn't have to be like, words per se, but it was this culmination of all these things that I suppressed and just kept trapped within myself.
Yeah.
That it's like I couldn't even roar as much as I, as a man, want to be this strong lion, this and that.
Mm.
Prove to me. I couldn't rationalize my way out of it. I was not that man at that moment. Right. And like, I couldn't, I really could not roar. I'm telling my brain, Josh, roar, roar,
Mm-hmm.
roar. And my body could not do it. It was just finally that moment where it wasn't like, okay, Josh, straight and narrow, do what you're supposed to do, wear this hat, play this role. It was like an invitation to step outside of that. And finally, I cracked. I finally broke. And what I found happen in the following days is like I start to actually connect with more of those emotions and things that I suppressed or ignored or whatever it happened to be, so that I could actually get to a place like you're talking about, where I could actually maybe start to piece it together and try to actually move through this. How does that sound to you? Like, is that something you've ever tried or witnessed, or, how does that come across to you, man?
Well, to be honest, I never tried this. It's really interesting, but I believe, of course, this is 100%. I believe this, as you mentioned, the body, of course, it's trapped with these emotions that men keep inside, and even when you want to pretend, but the body, it has itself brain, and you cannot really mask this out. This voice that you want to make. Well, I believe that this is such an important also thing for also the listeners, that how important is for us men to really express ourselves, and to not just be in this, as I mentioned, conditioned societal expectations space, where we have to really perform to be as a real man. But then when something this happens, as you mentioned, we see that no way, no way you can pretend to be a real man,
Yeah.
with this thing, because what is also said, is that many men, of course, I also experienced this with myself. Underneath, there is a real man waiting for you.
Mm.
We all are the same. We're all the same. You have to be aware of this. We're all the same. I'm not better than anybody else. You are not better. We are all the same. But we are covered with this conditioned programming, and we have to be just aware that there is a man waiting for you. But you just have to discover it and uncover it, and you will then can be really your more authentic self. And you can then roar how much you can. But you
Yeah.
just have to carve this away. And yeah, there is work to do, of course,
Yeah.
but this is the only way.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So, as you've seen it, right? And maybe even if you
Yeah.
wish to share about your personal, growth through this stage as well, how much of this do you see when a man is going through divorce, right? The pain that he's feeling. I know you've spoken briefly about it, but, how much of this
Yeah.
is really about the divorce and the breaking apart of, say, his partnership with his wife, right? Versus more just like, shoot, I failed myself, or I failed as a husband, provider, protector, all of those things. You know what I mean? Like, I guess what I'm really getting at here is like, how much of this is just a personal, is he taking it as just a personal shot at himself versus actually being impacted by other elements, such as the loss of an emotional connection and love and all of those other things? Like, do you hear any of that communicated usually?
Well, as you mentioned, yeah, of course, man in the relationship and the marriage, he plays many roles. Yeah, as you mentioned, of course, husband, provider, protector, father, even, and those roles are tied to his identity, of course. And when the divorce hits, well, it doesn't break just relationship, but it also breaks his identity and the roles he used to play. And without those roles, he feels really unstable, empty, and afraid, scared. And especially also, I can say, after you've been in the marriage for 10 or more years, your nervous system is also used to in that life, in that stable, predictable, and safe life. And when that ends, well, it's really like your life ended.
Hmm.
I remember how I felt. I really felt that I didn't know how I will survive, literally. It was really brutal for me. And also for men, of course, many are not really aware that the environment, these roles that they play, the job titles and education, they all not define the man,
Right.
and because you are already whole, you are already loved, strong, and just for being you, you
Yeah.
know. And rebuilding after divorce, doesn't mean getting those roles back, but it means rebuilding what many men really probably never had or never were aware of, and this
Mhm.
is the relationship they have with themselves. So here we are back in this, as you already talked about, self-relationship. This is the foundation. This is the foundation.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting. So, like, I guess what I want to ask you is like, when a man is trying to reclaim himself, after going
yeah.
through a divorce, right? Where do you find most men get this wrong? And, I'm asking this from a place that kind of inspired, like, as you've been talking, it's kind of made me think about, when I've seen men of divorce, when they're in that like new phase, if you will, right? A lot of it is definitely,
Mhm.
I found, efforts to prove that there was nothing wrong with me. Like the first person got it wrong. It wasn't me, right? I've
Yeah.
never seen him necessarily step into it and do it from a place of like calmness and excitement and kind of just
Mhm.
peace and flow. It's almost like, shoot, I'm behind. Like I gotta catch up. Shoot, like like it seems like it's kind of that flow. So that's kind of what comes to mind for me. So yeah, I'm curious for you, man. Like as they reclaim themselves, how do we usually get this wrong?
Well, to reclaim yourself, what actually means is to become unapologetically honest with yourself, to really face what you've been avoiding. And here the words again, yes, it first it looked like a great, pain and failure, but it's an opportunity for a man. It really is. And a man has to make a decision to want to be a better man, but not first to to build rebuild a better life, but first to rebuild himself again.
Yeah.
Because they, as I mentioned, they start to rebuild their external things, what broke externally, but they never touch what really broke within, within
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And they wanted to put together the old version of themselves instead of rebuilding something new, something that they will have in their future. And because because they don't do this it's dangerous, because then this leads to the similar life again. They repeat the cycle, they repeat the same circle, no the same these triggers and everything. And yeah, this is the easiest way. The easiest way is to just rebuild what broke from the outside. But the hardest way is to go within, and as I mentioned, to really rebuild the things that exposed, the divorce exposed. Because the divorce doesn't just break, as I mentioned, it also exposed the things that they were never they were never faced before. I know I pretended too much time that everything was okay with me, also in my marriage. And
Right.
I just said, okay, this will pass, but it didn't, it
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah.
So, Goran, like a question that I guess comes to mind for me, right, is how is it that we can actually, I think there's two sides of this, right? I think there's, how is it that we teach this, but also how do we open our minds or encourage other men to also open their minds, right? So that we can learn the lessons that something like divorce often teaches us or provides that opportunity to teach us without us having to actually go through divorce. Because I find a lot of what you're speaking about here
Yeah.
is stuff that historically I've seen gets triggered within a man when he's given an ultimatum or he does go through some great period of loss, versus more a proactive stepping into this. How do I make sure that I don't end up in this type of situation?
Yeah, this is a question, that is. I mean, I had an opportunity to really face with some men who, before even, I mean, they were not divorced, they were not divorced. They were just bitter, and they were not, who they really wanted to be. They were always angry. But what I experienced is that when I talked to them, yeah, they said they want to be this and this, and they want to change this and this. But when I said what it takes to get there, they said, okay, maybe I'll wait a little bit, because I see that if there is, this is the truth. If there is no pain, no real pain, no real, like a catalyst or something, you can also say that really, pushes you to do something. Many will not do nothing, because they just take the easiest way, and you cannot force somebody to change. No way. And I also, when I talk to men, I say, look, I'm here, I can support you if you're ready. Okay, if not, it's also okay,
Right.
because it's his life, it's his path, it's his soul journey, and maybe there is something in his way that he needs to do first. This is also, I cannot interfere in his life. But yes, I just clearly say, I'm here. I know how can I get you there where you want to be, but you have to be ready. If you're not ready, I cannot pull you from there and push you. No, I'm not here to do the things instead of you.
Yeah.
I
So
can here support you, but
Yeah.
you have to do the work. Because I know how it is. I know how it is, how it was with me. I also read a lot of books. I had a lot of support, but if I would just be there and just think about this, it wouldn't do nothing. I would be still there in this my old version of myself.
Yeah.
But I started to think. I also journaled everything. I did the work. And this is something that it's important. If the man he's not ready, and I cannot help him in that way.
Yeah. So, Goran, something that's come up a lot recently is this idea of readiness, right? So I would love to hear from you. How do you personally define readiness, like when you're thinking about someone who's a potential client, right? And then for someone who maybe they've acknowledged, hey, I'm not ready, like I'm not prepared yet, but I want to know what it is that I can do from a practical perspective to start getting myself ready. What can you share on that, just in case you have some listeners who happen to be at either of those points?
Well, first, I think that they first have to see and assess where they are now with their self relationship and with their identity and with their relationship, and to acknowledge and to really be open about it, what is okay with them, and what is something that they want to change, or there's something maybe it's bothering them or they're challenging them, because you first need to assess the current state. This is also something that I do with men. The first phase and the first step is the self relationship assessment.
Okay.
This is the foundation. Then we go next steps. So first thing is to see where you are right now. Yes, okay, I want to change. I want to to start doing something about my life. But first you have to see what. You cannot just jump and doing something. You have to have the foundation right,
Yeah.
and to see what will I do with, I don't know, as I said, with my relationship, with my, maybe how I treat myself, how I treat my children, how I treat my spouse, or whoever. But you first need to see where you stand now. This is your first step, and then you see, are you ready to make the change in this or this area in your life? And then
Okay.
of course you get the support. Yeah.
Got it. So have you had to turn away any men or tell them, hey, you know what, you're not quite ready to get the most out of what you offer, and just what just I'm just trying to get to the point of us like having a bit of a self-evaluation model, if you will, that we can reference to say like, you know what, have I actually set myself up to succeed in this program before I start to talk with Goran?
Yeah. Well, I didn't really close the door for a man, like when we were talking, but I filtered before the entering the program. I do this all the time. I filter, because I cannot work with anybody.
Right.
I first there we first is the clarity conversation. This is a free conversation, 45 minutes, when we just see again where you are at now and where you want to be, and there we also see if we are a good fit for each other.
Okay.
So before we start the program, this is the first entry thing, is this clarity conversation.
Mhm.
And then where we are opened, we talk about, I also say, okay, where you are. If he says, yes, I'm ready, okay, then we proceed. But then I also see if he's not really there, because there was one, I remember, who I felt that he would really need first the therapist, because I am not a therapist and I don't want to dwell in his past,
Right.
and some need, because of course there is trauma. I know this is also normal, and I acknowledge this. I said, okay, it's okay, I can help you, but first I would recommend, of
Mm.
course, to meet maybe therapist and see maybe if there is something that you need to clear up first, and then we can go further with my program. So
Got it.
this is, I think it's important that I also know, and that not to help any man, at any point. No,
Yeah.
I have to be. I have to feel it. I have
Yeah.
to feel, okay. Yes, I can help you, and you are a good fit. Let's do it together. And also, men can see this energy, and that when we are fit, then we just fly away. So this is yeah, the, the
Okay.
the thing that I do.
I
Yeah,
like that. And I think it's wonderful that you offer that free 45-minute conversation, because it takes
yeah,
that pressure off.
yeah,
Sometimes, I find that
yeah,
people feel that pressure of like, shoot, I don't want to pay for like 4 sessions of something. I haven't even met the person. I don't know their style. I don't
yeah,
know anything,
yeah,
right? So I think that's super helpful and very mindful, especially given the economic
yeah,
climate that everyone finds himself in. Where it's not that, I think we're a little bit more proactive than ever to try and find stuff that can help us. So, allowing
yeah,
that barrier to be broken down, I think is really thoughtful, man. So thank you for offering your services that way.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I want to ask you about, a little bit more pointed, I guess, a bit of the shadow side of divorce as you've seen it, right? So when we think about, men avoiding the responsibility or really leaning into those things, that will numb them out and prevent them from actually sitting, like you've said, in presence with that thought or that emotion, right? I'm curious from you, how is it that, I guess, how do you guide men through that openly and honestly, Because I know that there's a little bit of a delicate balance, right? Like they're in this state where they don't necessarily want to just be told they're super wrong, but at the same time, they might actually be
Yeah.
wrong. So how do you do that gracefully?
Yeah, this is it's a process, of course. And first, it's not well. First, we have to see and acknowledge how he really, how he really see what happened, to him, how he see the divorce. And
Right.
there is a lot of pain and a lot of, as already mentioned, men see the divorce as failure, of course, as personal failure. And they're also very scared because after that there is an unknown. What next, what to do now, what we are going to do now with my life. I also remember when I start to ask myself this. This was really, it was really like in the survival mode. It's really triggering. And yes, there is a lot of shame also there, and they try to avoid it. They don't want to, really don't want to show their real emotions. um, and yeah, they of course, like all men do, they want to tighten up. They say it's okay. I will get through this. I will go through this. And so they also numb, and they start to also, start to distract themselves. I also mentioned, with new hobbies, with more work. But this doesn't, this of course, this doesn't solve nothing. And some also start to, they start to create a story just to feel better, that they are not
Yeah.
hurt. And I say this, like they are like small boys. They're like small boys who react, when they get hurt. When they
Yeah.
get hurt, they attack just to feel better. And this is, of course, I believe that this is the part of the ego, battles with the reality.
For sure.
And how I guide, this man. Well, I also mentioned the first phase is discovering phase. The thing that where you are really, where they are now with their self relationship. What divorce really exposed. We are not talking about the divorce, but what it exposed. We want to really see what's behind that story they are telling to themselves. To
Yeah.
feel better. Yes, it's uncomfortable thing. It's not easy, but it's so necessary. It's so
Mhm.
necessary in that stage. Because if you don't do this, you are then building something on the unstable ground. And then eventually in the future, it can just break again. So it's really important that you rebuild your life, not on the old one, but
Yeah.
to really first assess the I can say the ruins. What
Yeah.
happened, what was left, and then pick the things, and go to the
Yeah.
next phase. And the next phase is the rebuild phase, and the design phase for the new man.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay. No, I like that. And I
yeah,
think it's super important. And if you can share, if you've seen, right? If you've seen any men who perhaps they've gone through our typical, things of trying to numb ourselves out with the alcohol and the drugs and the smoking and stuff like that. What have you seen as maybe some alternatives or ways that we can really start to do things differently in those moments? Different things that we can do. So, for example, when I just think about when I would drink or smoke or whatever, what am I trying to do? Right? It might be different at each time, but maybe I don't want to think about something. Maybe I want my mind to be quiet, right? Maybe I want to sleep well tonight because I haven't for a while, right? Like I found that as I've gotten curious and moved away from some of these things like alcohol and whatnot, right? I've gotten more to the
mhm,
root of like what was I actually trying to achieve by having this thing,
yeah,
right? Versus just like, yeah, I'm just gonna reach for the bottle of whiskey. Right. I think like there's an element of like us actually having to sit with ourselves, which once again comes back to what you've been pointing out all the way through, being able to actually be confident and comfortable enough and safe enough to sit with that presence of what our body's trying to actually communicate. Right. Like if it's saying,
yeah,
I need a drink right now, well, what message is it really saying? Right? You need a drink right now. Why? right? And I'm a huge
Yeah.
fan of the tool called the why ladder, right? Which is like you just keep asking yourself why to the previous answer you
Mm-hmm.
gave yourself till
Mm-hmm.
you get to the root.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, I just want to offer that, as something maybe for the men out there who are watching, maybe that's something you can try for
Yeah.
yourself as well, right? And that can get you, I feel, a bit closer to that stage of readiness to really start to
Mm-hmm.
unpack, unpeel, and really build something new moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. This is a good thing, because what is then the act of this? This is the act of self-love. This is the act of self-respect. This is then something that, if you want to be this man that who respects himself, who feels his worth, then you should do this ladder. I think this is a good one, because you are then exposed to the truth of what is really going on within
Right.
you, and where you want to escape and avoid it. Yeah, this is great. I think I really support this. So thank you for for this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, man.
thank you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, Goran, you, I think, are going to be a light in so many people's lives, and I'm sure you already have, my friend, right? Now, what I want to ask you, is to kind of paint a little bit of a picture for me and for our audience who's tuning in, right? What does a truly integrated post-divorce man look like and feel like, right? Not just like, yeah, you know what, he's got better clothes now, right? But truly, like when it comes to like the energy he brings to space, his clarity, all those kind of things. What can you tell us about maybe some, not, you don't have to get specifics, of course, but maybe some of the success stories or indicators that a man has truly turned the corner on it and chosen to grab the torch and carry his life forward?
Yeah. Yeah, this is, I can say, this is then the end result of my program, of course. And this is also something that I represent now, a post-divorce, truly integrated man, and what does this mean? Yeah, of course, this is a good question, because many also questioning, okay, now I will start to rebuild myself, and then how will I look, then, and how will I think, how will I act? And yeah, this is something, that I also am proud of myself that I'm there.
Yeah.
Of course, so there is also things that for improvement. There is also way and for improvement. But I know where I was and where I'm now. And this is also where men can be and also are when are going through my program. So if just mention a few things. So first, what is important, as I already mentioned, that the one thing that is really foundational is your self-relationship. So first, you need to learn and also be able to learn to lead yourself first. So this is the first thing. You lead yourself first. So the man who is post-divorce and integrated, he can lead himself before others, of course. Then he doesn't run from his thoughts and emotions, but he can sit with it, with them. He can sit with them. He doesn't shut down, and he doesn't distract himself anymore. Then he speaks clearly. No more I'm fine. Even though when he's not fine, he speaks this clearly about it.
Yeah.
He's not avoiding it. Um, he doesn't avoid hard and deep conversations with in the relationship. This is really a crucial one, because relationship, when I was in, I avoided too many time deep conversations, and these deep conversations are the ones that connect you more with your partner, and if
Yeah.
you avoid it, you also avoid the connection.
Yeah.
Then when you also are more vulnerable. You can speak open up more openly,
Mhm.
and even if you're feeling uncomfortable, because before that, when you felt this uncomfortableness, you just run away. But
Yeah.
now you can sit with it, and also sit with your partner's emotions. This is also important. I know that I was really triggered with my partner's emotions, and I couldn't sit with that there. I was really I was nervous, and of course, because I was afraid of what would happen and everything. Then I also mentioned that when he's a post-divorce integrated man, he's not a boy anymore. This is also important. He's not a boy anymore. He's not avoiding, reacting, or needing approval. He stands for himself strongly, and he's present in the relationship, and he doesn't disappear when things get serious and emotional.
Right.
And he doesn't respond. He responds but not reacts. Because this is very. It's very important thing that when your partner in your conversation triggers you, that you don't react immediately, but you just take your time and respond to that to that trigger and everything. This is important thing. And he also takes the responsibility for his life. That he knows who he is. He's he's really somebody also who loves himself, and because of that he can also share this love with his partner and family.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. No, I think those are wonderful, and thank you for pointing those out. And I wanted to ask you, what else have you noticed from these men who have truly integrated, the work and the learnings and things that the divorce gave them the opportunity to? How do you find their performances when it comes to, business and their relationships outside of just their marriage? Do you generally see some grand shifts that happen there? Like what else do you notice beyond just within that relationship of maybe the next person he gets romantically involved with?
Yes, when you rebuild your self relationship, it's not just there are not just differences or improvements in the relationships, but also in all areas of your life, because you are rebuilt. How you really perceive everything, and how you also react respond on your life. So as I mentioned, the businessmen, of course, they are more. First, they are more they more know, and they're more kind to the people, to their workers. They understand them more. They acknowledge them. They also gave them space to express themselves. Because this is important that of course that you feel the people, that because this is also coming from you, from your inner healthy relationship. And when you have this healthy relationship, then you also, of course, you support other more. You are more, or also you are more sympathetic. It is a word. Sorry. It is. Yeah. So it's also important because then you have boundaries, stronger boundaries. You respect yourself more. You're more assertive in your negotiations, or everywhere in your speeches, in your presentations.
Right.
You are more self-aware. You are courageous. Everything. This everything then from your new identity, because you build it in your fresh and healthy ground. Everything then, of course, flourish, I can say, in your areas of life. And what is very important is that you see the life with different, from different perspective, that is not happening to you but for you, and you see it, the opportunities for learning. And this is the best thing, because you can never fail if you see everything like opportunity for learning. Failure is just a feedback, and this is what is the best consequence of rebuilding your self relationship. And of course, not to mention the relationship that you are now in, that you then are in new relationships. I can say that this is the most beautiful thing, because you see your partner as a teammate, or somebody who really you want to grow with, not just be there just to have the partner, and not just to spend time with somebody, or just to say I have a wife or a husband. So it's a brand new life. I can say it's a brand new life. It really is.
I love that. And I think for our audience, I think that those are a significant number of reasons why, if you've ever been on the fence about, are there some resources for me and I'm kind of at this stage, I think it's pretty clear that you have a really, really optimized option right in front of you here with Goran. So, Goran, I've really, really learned so much, man. I appreciate you and your openness to share about your experiences, both personal and professional, when it comes to this topic. And
Yeah.
I think that this is really going to open the floodgates for a lot of people with their own curiosity and willingness to explore what is out there that can help them. So, one thing that I want to ask you before we do part is, can you share with our audience the best way that they can get in touch with you, whether it's different platforms or a website or something like that, why they would want to get in touch with you, and anything that you want to share about, upcoming events or programs or anything like that. It's all yours, man.
Yeah. Thank you, Joshua. I really appreciate. It's really a great conversation. I can say I really enjoyed it, and I hope we will do some more because I really enjoyed speaking to you. Really,
Likewise.
so thank you. Well, they can reach me. I believe that the best way for now is they can reach you through my LinkedIn page. And what I'm doing now, it's also maybe for some here who are, it's a new thing that I'm doing, an event. It's a private clarity session for men. So it's a free group online private clarity session for men that will be on April 16th.
Okay.
And in that session, there will be, of course, it's a structured session where men can see, and also we will go through the first discovery phase, and they could see where they stand now with their self relationship, also with relationship. It's especially for the men who just got out of divorce or separation, and they will come out, I can say, more calm, more clearer what their next step is. So I really encourage them. It's a really safe space, no recording. It will be just talking with me and some men who also understand them, so they will be in the safe place. So they can just go to my LinkedIn page, and they can just then register for free.
Okay.
And I invite them to this place, and I hope they will really find it useful.
Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. And I'll go and I'll make sure that I also find it and I'll share it in all of our
Yeah.
stuff so that more men can hopefully connect with it and show up.
Okay.
Yeah, man. So that's wonderful. And thank you to our audience who has tuned in today and invested your time into this conversation. Hope you've gotten a lot out of it, much like we have. And we would love to know what you liked, what you loved, what you learned. Let us know in the comments. This is always an ongoing conversation on the Umana Yana podcast. It's for the community. It's collaborative. This is where we come, we learn, we grow, and we hold each other to different standards because we're looking to do different in life. So, if you're looking to yourself appear on a podcast, thinking about that and you think that this might be the space for you, get in touch with me. We can certainly chat about that. If you're in the space of creating retreats or different wellness experiences, I am actually a curator of those types of things, and we can host that out in Costa Rica. And, there's a whole bunch of other stuff in the works, but I want to encourage you, much like we've encouraged all the way throughout this conversation. If anything we've shared with you today really resonates, reach on out. Just send us a message. That's all it takes. And then we initiate a conversation and we can go from there, right? But, I want to thank you once again, Goran, for today. This has been really deeply impactful. And, the Umana Yana podcast really thanks you for your presence today. So until next time, my friend, take care and keep doing the great stuff you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you a lot. Thank you.